Hello and welcome back to another farming guide. In today's video I'm going to be showing you how to water your plants effectively and efficiently. So I've had a lot of requests for this video, and the main reason is because nowhere out there are there any guides which show you exactly how to set up your sprinklers. So in this guide I'm going to show you exactly how sprinklers work and how to place them effectively, and then I'm also going to show you how you can maintain water level at exactly the amount that you want, because as we know, if you underwater your plants they won't grow, and if you overwater your plants they'll be oversaturated. The first thing to note is that unlike their animation, sprinklers don't constantly output water. Every 5 seconds they splash the beds that they're touching with 12 mils of water. The next thing to note is that the sprinklers will evenly distribute those 12 mils of water to each one of the planter boxes. Therefore, if you plant one sprinkler above 4 large planter boxes, it'll evenly distribute 3 mils of water to each one of those boxes. Also keep in mind that sprinklers aren't realistic. They have a large circular radius like this, and even though in this diagram you'd think most of the water would go to the top right box, sprinklers always evenly distribute it to all of the boxes that it's touching. Therefore, even in this diagram, all of the water would get divided evenly between the 4 because the sprinkler's still touching all 4 of those boxes. So with this information, I found out that it's actually better to place your sprinklers in the far corners of your setup. As you can see in my 4x4, I don't place the sprinklers in the center of each 2x2, I actually place them a little bit to the side. Therefore my sprinklers will only hit the 4 that they're touching, and they won't accidentally go over and touch some of the other 2x2s. This is extremely important because as you can see, the red sprinkler would actually be giving water out to 6 different planter boxes, which makes the math more confusing, and it would overwater the ones that are receiving water from 2 different types of sprinklers. This is why I always recommend the 4x4 because it makes calculations a lot easier. Okay, so now that we've got all that sorted, on to the actual calculations. Okay, so assuming you have my setup where you have 1 sprinkler per 2x2. That means you're going to have 1 sprinkler per every 4 large planter boxes. 1 sprinkler will output 12 mils of water every 5 seconds. That means every minute it'll output 144 mils of water. If you look closely at your plant, you can see that it actually says how many mils of water it needs per minute. This number will change depending on what plant you're using and if you have any W genes, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to assume you have a hemp plant which has no W genes. One hemp plant only needs 5 mils of water per minute. However, because we're talking about 2x2s, a 2x2 has 4 large planter boxes times by 9 plants per planter box, that's 36 hemp clones, and 36 times by 5 is 180. So if we subtract the difference, if we use 1 sprinkler per 2x2, we're going to be losing 36 mils per minute. And assuming perfect conditions, which is 70 minutes per growth cycle, that means we're going to be losing 2,520 milliliters per growth cycle. And because we have 4 large planter boxes, we're going to be losing 630 mils per planter box. Therefore, you can easily set up a 4x4 with 4 sprinklers and you only lose 630 mils per growth cycle. Then, every 2 growth cycles, you take your water jug and you splash it in each one of the corners. Because a water jug can hold 5,000 mils, it'll easily splash each one of those boxes, giving you 1,250 mils, which accounts for the 2 sets of 630 that you lost. Therefore, you only have to do about 30 seconds of manual labor every 2 growth cycles. However, if you came to this video to make your setup completely automated, don't worry, I'm going to go into that now. However, after the end of this video, you can decide whether or not you think it's worth it to make it fully automated or just to do a little bit of manual labor every 2 cycles. The easiest way to make the water fully automatic is to set up 2 sprinklers per 2x2. Therefore, for my 4x4, I have 8 sprinklers. Then we have to set up a circuit which turns the sprinklers on and off for a given period of time. Depending on the maths, we can determine how long we should leave the sprinklers on and how long we need them to be off for. So, as we know before, 1 sprinkler will output 144 mils of water per minute. Therefore, 2 sprinklers will output 288 mils per minute. We also know that we're watering 36 hemp plants, which means we need 180 mils. Therefore, we're going to be overwatering the plants with an extra of 108 mils. But if we take these numbers, we get an exact ratio of how long we want our sprinklers on for. We want the sprinklers on for 180 seconds for every 288 seconds. And if we simplify this, we can change this fraction to whatever number we want. For example, 10 over 16 or 5 over 8. Remember that the top number has to be a multiple of 5 because sprinklers only output water every 5 seconds. I don't like my sprinklers going on and off constantly, so I leave it at 60 seconds for every 96 seconds, as that's a well-rounded number. Although you can use whatever you want. You can do this next step in many different ways, however the circuit that I'm using came from Malinick, so I'll link his video down below and I highly recommend that you go check it out if you don't understand the wiring, as he'll show you the basic setup. It's a very simple circuit which just sets up an infinite loop. It uses two timers where the left timer is the amount that the sprinklers will stay on for and the right timer is your total time. So from our maths that we calculated earlier, we want the left timer to be 60 seconds and the right timer to be 96 seconds. You'll notice I'm using two fluid switches. Because the water pass-through via sprinklers only goes to a maximum of 6 sprinklers, you can't just have one switch for the whole system, you have to have one switch per 6 sprinklers. So because I have 8 sprinklers, I need 2 fluid switches because they can only power a maximum of 6 sprinklers. To keep things simple, I'm going to have one fluid switch go to the first 4 sprinklers and the other fluid switch go to the second 4 sprinklers. Then if you were to increase the circuit, you can go up in floors, but you're going to need another 2 fluid switches per floor. This is the circuit. As I said, I'll link Malinick's video down below so you can go check that out, but it's very simple. Just copy exactly what I've done here. Make sure to set the timers as I said earlier, and as you can see, the top E branch goes into the 2 fluid switches, and as you can see in the bottom right corner, I've got 2 E branches which also power the 2 fluid switches. Malinick will go through all of this with you in his video, however the only thing that I think he missed is, see this purple E branch? You need to set this to 2 plus 3 times the fluid switches. Therefore, because we have 2 fluid switches, it would be 2 plus 3 times 2, which is equal to 8. Then for every floor that you want to go up, you just have to add 2 more fluid switches and 2 more E branches as I've shown here. And then don't forget to set that purple E branch to an additional 6 per floor. Okay, so now you know how much extra work goes into making your setup fully automatic. If you would prefer to keep it manual, then I recommend that you keep watering it every 2 growth cycles, as this only really takes about 30 seconds of manual labor, and because you're cloning your plants anyway, an additional 30 seconds isn't going to hurt. However, for the people out there that are doing this for fun, or those people that are rich in high qual and can afford to make circuits like this, then by all means go ahead. Although do keep in mind that this is going to add to the high qual costs of your build. The last information that I'm going to go over is how to source your water. Stay away from water catchers, they are not worth your time. If you want to make this setup fully automatic with sprinklers, then I recommend you get yourself some water pumps. Water pumps output a lot of water and they only require 5 power to run. So to power all of your water pumps, all you need to do is set up a chain of E branches like this, and then each one of those E branches out 5 power to each one of the water pumps. Then, after some testing, I found out that 3 water pumps will power 4 sprinklers quite nicely. If you use less water pumps, then the sprinklers will turn off every couple of seconds and you won't be getting the maximum output of 144 mils per minute. And if you try and go overboard on the pumps and you, let's say, put 20 pumps going into a single sprinkler, it doesn't matter. The sprinkler's capped at 144 mils per minute. So if you're going for the partially automated option where you're going to have to manually water your crops every 2 harvest cycles, then for a 4x4, all you need is 3 pumps which feed into a fluid combiner, and that fluid combiner can go into the 4 sprinklers. However, if you're going for the more automated option, then you're going to need 6 pumps per 4x4. As you can see here, each one of the sets of 3 pumps feeds into a fluid combiner, and each one of those fluid combiner goes into the fluid switch, and then out of the fluid switch it goes back into the sprinkler. Then the circuit will kick in, and for every of our 96 seconds, we'll only be watering for 60 of them. Remember that I was using a hemp clone which had no W genes. Therefore, I needed 180 mils of water per minute. However, obviously you can adjust the formula to whatever your clone demands. Just simply look at your clone and see how many mils of water it needs per minute, then times that by 36 if you're watering in sets of 2x2s, and then you can adjust the formula for the timers. And I also know that not everyone's going to be using a 4x4 design, however obviously you can adjust the amount of water that you're taking in and distributing with your sprinklers accordingly. If you want to take my advice, then I highly recommend that you build your farm blocks in sets of 2x2s, as this allows you to place one sprinkler in the middle and then just adjust my maths as I've done here. I personally go for the semi-automated version, as this cuts down high qual costs quite a lot, and I just prefer it this way because the extra manual labor is not that much extra. Although if it's later into wipe, every second counts on each floor, so it's a good system to add. Remember that it's a scaled system where it gets less costly per floor because you only have to pay for the circuit once, then just add fluid switches and E-branches. So this is a cool feature that you can do, and if you're playing in a large group and then you know that you're going to be having multiple floors by day 2, then I highly recommend that you do this automated version. Of course, let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I'll be happy to answer any questions or queries. Feel free to join my Discord, as that's the easiest way to contact me. This video took a lot longer to produce than I initially thought. Originally I thought I was just going to run some tests and find some information and feed it back to you guys, but I found out a lot more information than I ever thought I would. There's a lot of information missing on the wiki pages for things like sprinklers and pumps, so a lot of this testing and numbers I had to come up with myself. Therefore, I wanted this video to be a database which stored all the information related to the water items. Obviously, things are subject to change, but if anything major happens, I'll be sure to update you guys. And one last thing before I go, I thought this was assumed knowledge, but I just got a comment a couple of minutes ago asking, so the water level should be anywhere between 4,500 and 6,500. It doesn't really matter as long as it's in between that range, and your plant says that it's at 100% for its water. Also, do keep in mind that if you're not using fertilizer, your plant's going to be capped at 67% anyway, therefore you can forget the circuits and just oversaturate your plants, as it doesn't matter if it's oversaturated if you're not using fertilizer anyway. Thank you so much for watching to the end of this video, good luck in Rust, and I'll see you in the next one.